Hey Zook family, it's Sunday, my favorite conversation of the week. The interest keeps growing and growing. It's our most watched video globally. Man who needs zero introduction anymore. He's out there with his pet birds in his garden. We have the palm trees in the background. Ron, how have you been?
Good. The birds seem to do a lot more of this at night. I think it's great for the video. I think it's coming together good for the segment.
That's amazing marketing tool. You just managed to. This is hooking up props at the last minute for us. That's fantastic, Ron. Next week I want it on your shoulder. That's where we gotta go.
We get like some sort of parrot would be nice.
Yeah. So super exciting guest this week because I don't want to give him the intro that he deserves better from, but he used to be chief executive staff for P. Diddy. He used to run some of the hottest doors in New York. He is set the pace for hospitality in Vegas, and I don't even think I'm doing him justice. Who are we meeting this week?
So this week we're going to have Timothy Sheldon on. So Tim, great guy. I've known him probably 15 plus years. I don't want to age him or myself. I mean, just a very special individual in the nightlife hospitality world, and really is a guy who was ahead of his time. Came out to Las Vegas when the club scene was a lot different and brought a very unique style, and really. You saw once he got out there, people trying to emulate that. And again, a lot of great core values that you want in a guy who's on your team. Really amazing life journey. I'm excited he's going to be on to share it with us.
Let's go straight in and meet him. Ron, you've got a very special guest for us, one that I've been looking forward to for 2 weeks since you announced it. Please, can you introduce us?
He's a great friend of mine, was actually a best man at my wedding. Timothy Sheldon. Tim, how's it going today?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. Hello, thanks for having me on.
So Tim, I gather you've got an amazing background. I mean, Ron was giving me a bit of an intro last week about your background. You're not just a big hitter in Vegas, but New York as well. Do you want to give us a little bit of a back passage of your route to where you are today?
I kind of came into the profession of entertainment through my big sister, Jillian. She started TMZ, which is a well-known website and television show that dealt in entertainment. She has a background in journalism, and so they started this concept behind televising and putting out information about celebrities and their legal problems or issues. And so she ended up moving to LA from Seattle, and then I followed shortly after, and I worked there for a few years. I was one of the first employees, and I worked with the big guy that owns the show. And I learned a little bit about celebrities in the sense of news and their personal relationships with the media. Definitely an interesting introduction because I was talking with a lot of publicists and agents, and then also a lot of these different people. And they're just regular people, so they do have more, limelight on them, but they still have regular problems. And so it really humanized it for me. But I moved into entertainment full time on the kind of management side. I got a job working for Sean Combs, people know as Diddy or P. Diddy or Puff. Years ago, I moved out to New York, and I was his day-to-day tour manager, personal assistant. I did styling for him. And he was a very, very busy guy. He was involved in so many different businesses, from fashion to television and music and movies, fragrances, even had a car company, rim company, did a lot of collaborative stuff. So I learned a lot about music, but moreover, a lot about marketing, about knowing how to cross-pollinate different brands. And I worked with him when the genesis of the Ciroc vodka deal came about, and watching the development of these deals come about through my tenure with him. I learned a lot about marketing, and I learned a lot about music. When I resigned working with Puff, I went out in New York a lot. I lived with him, so we were in New York and in Miami, LA, and also on tour in Europe and all over. When I resigned, I had a few months off, and I went out quite a lot and did some styling for some people at record labels. And I came out to Vegas, and I kind of got headhunted by The Win, and I met Ronn. And I didn't think that nightlife was a very viable, interesting business in Vegas. It totally changed my perspective because it was massive business pulling in huge money. And what I loved about it, not necessarily the size and the financial success, but I really enjoyed watching people have a great time. You've got the idea of guest experience. And I always cared about hospitality. You know, I'd worked in hotels prior to hotels, restaurants. You know, I was a kid washing dishes and, you know, waiting tables and behind the bar before I got my entertainment jobs. And I always cared about the guest experience. I think that people in Vegas have a hospitality gene. You know, they genuinely care about you having a good. And that's what blew the money and the glitz and glamour of the Wynn, which was incredible property. Watching people have an experience that they'll never forget. They go home, they tell their friends and family, they come back once a year or once every month, you know, but setting a precedent of the highest caliber guest experience with the most beautiful venue, best service, you know, enough homage to it. You know, when I say it's the best, it truly, you know, taught me a lot about the upper echelons of guest service. And Ronn, you know, really helped pave the way for me to have an opportunity there. And I learned quite a lot from him. And he's a marketing genius. He has, you know, definitely paved the way for Vegas for the last easily decade. It's interesting. It's been very interesting to watch the shape of Vegas shift over time. It's always important to innovate and change, especially when, you know, entertainment is, you know, a lot of these venues and a lot of these concepts are in Vegas because they innovate there. And, you know, Ron's at the forefront of that. I learned a lot from him, and I was definitely thankful for the opportunity to work with him when I did.
It's fascinating that you talk about such a wide variety there, and I want to pick your brains on some of them because we get a real chance to deep dive into your experiences. I mean, we've been lucky enough to listen and learn from Ronn for the last 10 weeks, and we've deep dived into a lot of his marketing campaigns. You were there, as you say, during the era of the Ciroc vodka deal and so on and so forth. So you saw the beginning of a lot of celebrity endorsements into alcohol, which of course carried on with Jay-Z and Ace of Spades. We've seen George Clooney and tequilas. Have you seen that the celebrity model, especially in Vegas, is something that people have driven themselves to? I mean, the whole fascination with celebrity, you will have been there when Keeping Up with the Kardashians first launched and people started taking a real abject interest in the celebrities. And also, thanks to Twitter, Instagram, people can connect with celebrities. So did you see the endorsement side as a natural progression? And what do you think it's like now?
I want to throw something in there, an interesting story. I had a club in Edmonton that I was doing. It was a side passion project. And Tim actually booked Kim Kardashian for me to host the club right before the show launched. So it was like he was on top of that trend. He knew who the Kardashians were. He knew who the family was. And I remember at the time when I booked her, she had not blown up yet. She was like Paris Hilton's friend. And Tim is like, I've got this girl for you. She's going to be perfect. Book her. It's going to be a big win for you. And I remember we booked her and it was like over their heads in Edmonton. And we ended up getting so much press because of it, but it was like all LA press that Kim Kardashian basically, and it wasn't even the club opening, but the way that all the media read was that she did the opening of this club in Edmonton. And we had been open for like 3 months. And then the funny thing was she actually got stuck in an elevator. She got
I remember that. She called me. Yeah, she was stuck in the elevator and she was calm. It was fine. Everything worked out, but I remember she got stuck in the elevator.
And then the crazy thing was she literally blew up over the next couple of years. And the casino there in one of the back of house rooms actually kept the flyer hanging up. Like they framed the poster and that I guess she had signed it and it was hanging up in the back because all of a sudden now she's like, obviously, 100 million followers on Instagram. She's a global star, but Tim actually put that deal together for us.
I remember that. No, I'd forgotten about that. That was a while ago. It's no secret. I mean, you watch through the 90s, Michael Jordan tie on with some big name brands like Nike and Gatorade and, all his other brand affiliations. The trajectory was already moving. It's interesting to have watched in Vegas the celebrity endorsement in the clubs, people showing up where you may buy a ticket to go see Celine Dion or have gone to see Frank Sinatra, for example. Paris Hilton and Kardashian hosting a club would bring out more numbers than a popular musician, or a popular musician might, cost less than a big name, performer to come. But then, as we all know, the DJs became celebrities in and of themselves. So you're seeing DJs with, clothing deals, alcohol deals. So I think anything that's associated with pop culture and anything that's associated with music and fashion, art and culture is going to culminate in nightlife as the epicenter. And I truly believe that the reason nightlife was so great as I got into the business, this is my opinion, was because it was a place where it was the crossroads of those industries. In any given night in New York or in Paris or in a London nightclub, you could walk through the doors of a very exclusive club, and you'd have to be selected by a doorman and go through that whole kind of process. But the crowd was filled with very cool downtown artists, hip models, and like maybe a broke gay skateboarder, street artist guy, and then a banker, but who had great also invest maybe in a new up and coming artist's work, build his collection. But he would meet that guy in a nightclub, or the skateboarder might meet his girlfriend or whatever. That intersection of nightlife has always been the epicenter of those cultural movements. Fashion, art, and music all collide in nightlife spaces.
Tim, I wanted to throw a story in here really quick because it was something that was really meaningful to me. So this was probably about 3 years ago, and I happened to be in New Jersey, and I think I was participating in some sort of like fitness event, and I think I found myself and was doing something, and I remember getting hit up by David Guetta, and David Guetta was going to be in New York. He had some album obligations and wanted to go to one of the Met Gala after parties. And I remember this being like a thing. He said, "Hey, I'm in town." And I happened to be in New Jersey. So I made my way to New York and I reached out to Tim. And again, this is completely last minute at probably globally one of the hardest events to get into. And again, for those of you who know me, I'm pretty introverted and I don't really like going too many places. I'm really intimidated by doors that aren't mine. And we get out of the car and I'm escorting David and his girlfriend, and Tim's standing at the door, and Tim walks us right in. And literally, Tim, I remember at a point there's cameras, there's celebrities, and there's literally celebrities that have just come from the Met Gala waiting, and Tim walks out, opens the rope, and walks us right into, I believe it was the Boom Boom Room.
Yeah, at the top of the Standard Hotel in the Meatpacking District. Yeah,
I remember walking up there, and it probably to this day is probably one of the most exclusive parties I've ever been to, and was like super clutch because again, I didn't know what we were walking into, and obviously Tim's always been the guy in pretty much every city globally in the world. He's 1 degree separated from knowing the guy or actually being the guy, and it was something that was meaningful to me because I remember the whole day, not necessarily being worried, but being in that uncomfortable position of saying, hey, if somehow I get turned away at the door with David, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I know this is a big deal. But Tim, It's one of the stories that really has always stood out to me. Because again, otherwise I don't know what I would have done.
That was the Vogue after party, and Vogue, was the magazine held by Anna Wintour, and was really, really fun because everybody's really dressed up. I remember Ronn came in his tuxedo and had a fancy mustache on, and David and his girlfriend came, and we had a really, really nice time. But Ronn fits in to the exact type of person that should be at a party like that. But it's testament to Ronn's desire to take care of people, and he's got great relationships with these DJs, and he always plays certain things down, and he's a very humble guy. But Ronn would have been fine by emailing some PR person at Vogue and walked David Guetta in himself and just happened to be there. But we had a nice time that night. But the idea of being at these places and these events, and it's important. These are the events that shape our lives. Celebration is something worth remembering and going all out on. I think especially in difficult times like we're having now, celebrations are going to come back even stronger because there's a lot to celebrate, a lot to rejoice over. And I think I think that's what drew me to this industry anyway. But yeah, we had a fun time that night. It was a lot to remember. some things
Tarzan
I can't
was
talk
there.
about. Yeah, what's that?
Tarzan,
Tarzan. Which Tarzan?
the guy who played Tarzan.
It was everybody who was at that. It was all kinds of people. It was fun.
So let me ask you a question, Tim. You touched on something interesting and something that
Sure.
Ron and I have resonated with so much over the last few weeks about. We both got into it for the same reason of watching people having the best time, and watching celebrations and linking with people through emotional memories. What have you been doing during the lockdown period, and how have you been seeing brands or nightlife brands utilizing their time during this lockdown period?
Well, I've been working on some music management things, helping different DJs, working with some labels and singers and songwriters. There's a lot of music production happening. Watching online streaming is really interesting, and the people that are like keeping up and changing, really innovating. I've watched some awesome DJs. Yeah, I'll keep some brands out of it, but basically, it's been interesting to watch people tune in on live stream. There's money to be made, and there's still a lot of exposure to get. I've watched certain DJs go on and they schedule a set every Friday at 10 p.m. on West Coast time. And within a few weeks, they're doing collaborative deals with, let's say, food delivery service apps, right? Things that are relevant in this time. Being innovative and thinking and trying to get ahead of the curve. Watching that and trying to help be involved in it it's definitely kept me busy. I've enjoyed being in in very rural areas. Thankfully, I'm not in the city where I can actually get outside and get some fresh air and exercise and get some sun. And also, lastly, one thing that's been great for me is I've been working with my hands a lot, doing some manual labor, working in the woods, doing real manly stuff. Because, for the last number of years, when you're walking in and out of a nightclub, you got a necktie on and you're polished and, clean. And there's you forget that sometimes, working with your hands and you can look at something after you've done it. I've been in the woods working with a chainsaw on some property, logging trees, basically. But when you finish up and you can see that you've done a job, very well, there's some pride in that I've forgotten about. So just trying to keep my mind and body healthy and stay busy with some creative stuff, but also just physical labor to check out and, focus on it.
That's key. It means you keep your mind fresh and also manage to utilize this time to relax. Maybe this will never happen again. Hopefully this will never happen again. But a lot of people have been saying that they use this chance to reset a bit and take up skills or use activities that they've been dreaming about doing. So it sounds quite interesting. So can you sculpt a Zoot logo out of wood for us?
No, I wouldn't. We can take down some pretty big trees, which is a feat in and of itself. You have to use a little, geometry, trigonometry, and physics, whatever. But, for me, it has been a bit of a reset button. As Ron knows, most of the year I've been traveling. I'm on a plane 2 or 3 times a week, and that's totally been shut down. It's always was really important to me to stay relevant and current in lots of different markets. So, any given week I'd be in New York or Stockholm or Tokyo or Hong Kong or, South America, Mexico. That obviously isn't happening. So it's been nice to slow down a little bit. I do miss having a drink with friends in, foreign cities, a nice reset. And I think things are going to change. I don't know if, the world will come back the same, but that's always something that is probably better to change and progress forward. So I'm excited to see how it's going to affect our business. I do still feel strongly about the industry. Nightlife, hospitality, bars, restaurants, and hotels. They will exist. It'll be interesting to see how they emerge after this time.
That's key. So any lasting memories you want to throw out there, Ron, before we wrap up?
Who's that? Oh, yeah, that's Tarzan. He and I, yeah. That's right.
Tarzan, that guy.
No, I won't.
That guy's Tarzan.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Alexander Skarsgård. I won't share this. He goes every year to the Met too. We always meet at the bar and have beers. The same place every year at the same time. It's great. Lasting memories. Well, there, as you know, Joe, and I don't need to allude to this. Everybody that works in nightlife knows that they've seen crazy things. They've been a part of crazy parties. A lot of the things we've seen in Las Vegas are overwhelmingly crazy that you wouldn't believe me if I said them. But a part of the
Code of conduct.
I guess you'd say, yeah, well, people want to go to Vegas and have a great time and have nobody know about it. So we do hold a lot of those stories close to our chest. But it's funny that Ron said that Kim Kardashian got stuck in the elevator. I wouldn't have said that, but I remember, yeah, that was definitely one of them. But, watching athletes, musicians, very successful captains of industry, watching celebrities, actors, models, etc., and then Joe, the regular concrete guy, hang out at the table next to each other and have a great time, high-fiving, having shots together. These are nights that people will get, and these are the memories. I was going back through photos yesterday of a particular friend, and we were in Capri and we took a boat, seafood and whatever. Anyway, it's like I remember looking back at my Amex bill and being like, holy shit, but I would never trade that. And I miss that kind of stuff the most, the sharing of the great experiences with friends. And I do feel like it's gonna come back because people do want to have those kind of events again. But to your guys' credit, what you're trying to build that's forthcoming in Las Vegas will be innovative and definitely concepts that I don't think anywhere in the world has ever seen. So I think that there's a lot to look forward to.
You told me a story one day, and to set the tone, it's the middle of winter, and I came out to New York, and I'm coming to visit you, and we're walking around Little Italy. Remember when you had that place in Little Italy, and you told me a nightlife story, and to me it was inspiring because you told me the story of the original door guy from Studio 54, and it was impactful. And it literally, we're talking, this is over a decade later, that story has always stuck with me. And it's funny because the setting of it, I remember us just walking through the streets, and I believe it was snowing and it was really cold, and you telling me that story, it actually added almost a layer into my respect in what industry we worked in.
I remember visiting, it was a while ago now, and I do feel that nightlife has fundamentally changed. And I think that at that time, this is probably around 10 years ago, the kind of the pinnacle of the last of the old nightlife era that was really about a strong door and not so much about revenue. You could make money, but you'd make money because you'd have a really great room and people are having a good time. The importance of a doorman really was kicked off by a guy named Mark Beneke, who was looking for a summer job, and he rolled up to Studio 54 and basically was selected to do that job. And he had to stand on a water plug, a fire hydrant, so he could look out over the crowd and select people. And he knew how important it was to have that job. And there's a nightlife writer in New York named Steve Lewis, who also frequented 54 and worked there a bit, I believe. And he's written for a number of publications. He would come by and visit once or twice a week on his way on his rounds. He would go to different. It's a different, strange, kind of thankless job, and it's hard to describe. And people don't. You have to be kind of closed off and not very approachable, but you still have to be very respectful and very polite. It's a business of hospitality, but the customer's not always right. If you had to be nice and let everybody in, this rhetoric has been said 1,000 different times. And when the best analogy is a very simple one, and Steve Rubell from Studio 54 had said the best way to build a room is to have a great base of, and the analogy was a salad, a great base of lettuce, and then sprinkle in some tomatoes and some carrots and cucumbers, and then the music is the dressing. Or that doorman has a very, very difficult job. They have to select who is coming into the nightclub, and you want to have that interesting intersection, like I spoke about before, of different walks of life. You don't want all one kind of people, whether it's socioeconomic, the same people, race, religion, cultures. Nightlife has always been a great equalizer. As long as you were inside, you were part of a select few that could come have a good time. But it's hard to explain this to people, but you want the patrons of the club to add value. And people can do that in different ways, whether they are a famous person who's a celebrity, that adds value because people know them and they like them, or an athlete who's very good at a sport, or a very beautiful woman. You want to have lots of, pretty people because, the mix is really eclectic, and people from all over. But the job is tough. You have to read people really fast, and you have to be polite. You get yelled at a lot. You get made fun of a lot. Factor is to have integrity, to really care about that job. And it doesn't matter how much money you make. You get offered lots of things in trade, and either tip money, pick out something, be nice to you because they want to do a quid pro quo, get something. If you can take care of them, you have to politely say no. You have to have integrity, and people need to, gain entrance based on the merit of, who they are, and their energy, or what they do, or, and I know, again, been said, interviews, they talk of, people say, so what's the key to getting past the velvet rope? And a lot of guys have, philosophical ideas about it, but basically add value, have, great energy, be polite and be patient, and, try and, bring a good positive vibe to that crowd. But, Ronn coming out to visit and seeing that New York kind of scene, I think that was a place where, not a lot of places in the world anymore really care the same way as New York does about its kind of vibe. And I think that it's a lost art. It's a thankless art, but it's something to think about. And I'm glad that Ronn, remembers that, because he values positions like that. And I think he values the idea of, quality control at the door.
I remember, you remind me, Tim, of a story when I first started working. I worked for this phenomenally famous club in London called China White. And we booked one of my first big customers was a high roller who was actually a casino player, and he was in town. I had a very short temper, and he came to the front door and he accepted whatever minimum we would give him. And he texted me from outside going, "What's the holdup?" And I went up to the front and I said to the guy on the front door, a great friend of mine, Rupert, and I said, "What's the holdup? What's the holdup? He's willing to spend thousands." Rupert said, "He's a bit touchy, Joe, as in a bit aggressive." And I said, but let's get him in. He said, "Joe, if he can't wait in the queue for 30 seconds, imagine how difficult he's going to be after a few drinks." And he says, "I'm going to ask him politely to wait. If he can wait that 30 seconds, we'll be all right. If he snap responds, then I'm not going to let him in." And lo and behold, the guy got really obnoxious, went somewhere else, and true story, got into a fight that night at another venue. And Rupert said, "You see, I've been doing this long enough to read people, to know that $1,000 downstairs today, and we lose two other big spenders because there's a big fight, costs us millions in the future. And it ruins the dynamic for everyone else who's having a good time." And so you're right, it is an art form and people underestimate it. Especially with competition, people try and let anyone in at any cost, any price, but sometimes it's who you turn away that's more important than who you let in.
I think you articulated very well, Joe. The dynamic is forever changed. And, if I were to take a handshake tip of however much money, it really wouldn't matter, because the great people that are having a great time may not come back next week if, less quality or less caliber people are in there, and they'll say, "Oh, this place fell off. I'm going to go down the street," and you never get them back. They won't ever come back.
No, I was just going to say that it's been great listening to Tim. You speak a lot of sense. You also speak a very intelligent viewpoint into nightlife, often an area that people don't necessarily respect as much as they should. These are huge businesses, but it's also, as you say, when I moved into nightlife, my father was very disappointed 15 years ago, but I did turn to him, and you look at China White as an example. I say, where would you ever find a room that might have a politician, a sports star, the CEO of a bank, a supermodel, and a media mogul all in the same room at the same time. A lawyer will look after clients in his office, a banker will look after clients' office, but it's a very big emergence. And many big deals and many great relationships have been found when people have gone to relax and celebrate. And I've really enjoyed listening to your take on it, because it's something that resonates from me from when I started nearly 2 decades ago. It's great to see you've really described the class and the brains behind this industry that a lot of people overlook, I feel.
I think that it's a really important point. I also have felt some, not shame, I guess, from my family. They're all very successful and very kind of straightforward, lines of work. And it's hard to explain to somebody that doesn't really get it. And I've gotten over that over the years, but you're absolutely right. Huge deals are made in nightclubs. The networking there alone is, if you want to get into any business, you'll find the heads of those businesses, the people that are really setting the tone and making moves. You'll find them in a successful nightclub in any major city. I had a conversation with my mother a few years ago when I kind of came to terms with it, because, you're not out curing cancer. You're selling people alcohol, and, they can come and dance. But the world, especially right now as an example, is not a great place sometimes. People have a very, very hard time. They struggle. They work very hard. They, come across adversity. And oftentimes a nightclub is a place where people can come and let go of that. And they, for whatever reason they need to, they'll come and have a couple drinks, dance, listen to great music, meet people, have fun, have a laugh. And I feel great about being part of that. I feel great about providing, entertainment and diversion and giving people a smile, helping people kind of deal with their day-to-day issues. There's something noble in that, I think. And I'm glad to have been a part of it. I get invites to things and thank you letters from people. I've met one, and there's maybe customers or guests that you've helped out that you don't recall, but I've gotten wedding invites. I met my wife the night that you took care of us, and we're really excited about, the fact we're getting married. Come to our wedding, wow. And people, we I think become a little bit used to these kind of crazy nights. A guy spending $20, $30, $100,000 on bottles of champagne. It's probably the best night of his life, and it's just a Saturday to us. I try never to become illusioned by that wow factor down, because it's it is a crazy event for anybody to spend that kind of money or come with friends to enjoy themselves. So I try and remember that with perspective, that it's definitely life-changing industry. And people will make memories in these nightclubs on vacation or, celebrating in their hometown or whatever. And I think it's an important job. And I'm glad I feel better about it. It's something that doesn't really get the respect it should. I don't think people really understand it, or they may brush it off. It's a very serious industry, and it's an important one. And I think that it should be noted that, it's probably the hardest hit industry in these times, affected by COVID. I can't think of another industry that's more affected.
I think you summarize it super well. I mean, you may not remember. I mean, there are milestones in every career that people live through, but everyone in their life remembers where they celebrated perhaps their 21st birthday, or where they met their wife, and all these things you've described. And we play a part in that. And I think a lot of people forget that. And one of the most important things which you touched on, which I always try and explain to the team, is the experience starts at the front door. You can make or lose an impression of a whole night by being rude to someone when they arrive, or just by being welcoming to someone and making someone feel special. And I always think that it's why we call our community Zouk family, and because we're welcoming them home rather than just saying, hey, come in and get drunk. And as you say, someone may have been through a breakup and they've decided to come and watch a big DJ to get over it, or someone might be going through a really rough time and want to take their mind off it. And if we can do that for 2 hours or 4 hours, then it is a more powerful thing than people realize, that there is a purpose to what it does. And it's great for you to be able to, someone who's had such extensive experience in such remarkable venues plus career to rubber stamp that. And thanks a lot for sharing that with us.
Now, Joe, I was able to convince Tim
You're
to
welcome.
come back to Vegas a few years ago. A very big, well-known casino owner was opening up a private members club, and I was able to convince Tim to come back and run that space. And my hope is, as you and I get closer to the Las Vegas project, maybe we'll be able to convince Tim to come back to Vegas again.
I'm sure that we can have a conversation, Ron.
If anyone can, Ron Nicoli can. That's one thing I've learned in the last 10 weeks.
Well, he's a very well-respected guy. He's got a great reputation. And, this industry is built, operators, hospitality experts are built on reputation. And, the professionalism that Ron exudes and his innovative brain, his humility is, paramount to, it's a testament to his level of professionalism, and he cares about quite a lot. It's a chosen profession, and I've watched him for the years better and better as he does, in particular management, and trusting his own judgment and coming up with amazing concepts, but also making everybody feel comfortable and making everybody that works on his team feel important and valued. And it's really been great watching Ron emerge and develop into the great leader that he is. I mean, a lot of people have great skills. A lot of people can do a lot of things, but leading staff, management of staff is an art. It's subtle and it's nuanced, and it's terribly important, because you could be a great guy that can deliver a great, concept or whatever, but if people hate working for you, nobody's going to want to be at that venue working with you. And it's always been a pleasure to work with Ron over the years, and I consider him, one of my best friends.
Tim, we have to wrap up because of the time, but thank you so much for joining us. Thank you also, because I came to Vegas, Ron gave me a tour, and you looked after us so excellently. And I just remember the small touches of just saying, if there's anything you need, let us know. And it's that kind of care and consideration that made it, when you work in nightclubs, you don't always want to be in nightclubs, but I had a great time thanks to you. We had a great time in Vegas, my first time, thanks to Ron. So it's been great to reconnect over this pattern, and I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tim, love and respect, man. I appreciate you jumping on with us and all the kind words. I'm sure we're probably just in the midpoint of our life journey together. So I'm sure, when you're back in Vegas with us, we'll have a lot more stories.
I like that. Okay, gents, take care. Have a good night.
Take care, brother. Thank you.
Well, Ron, that was a great conversation. I got to be honest, it touched me emotionally in a few places, because he brings back some resonance that mean a lot to me about why I got into the industry and the people I looked up to before I joined, and the real, I wouldn't even say they're secrets, but the real touch points, as you say, of what makes hospitality not just special but important. Wow, he's really got a lot to say, and I feel he has a lot more that he can't tell us than he can, but a really classy guy.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, it's always great for us to do these segments, and obviously I think the goal is that we're helping to educate and inspire, and I hope that there's some sort of human connection. This one was special because to your point, he's talking about some of these times, and it's pretty nostalgic. It's really sparking some emotion for me, because it's a lot of nostalgic memories that are connected directly and even indirectly to some of the stories he was telling. So really great night. I'm really excited we got to share that with everyone.
And in this form, we're going to be linking up with some more people. At my side, I've got a couple of the big hitters here in Resorts World Genting. We've obviously got this huge theme park, the most anticipated theme park in Southeast Asia, coming up very soon. I'm going to invite someone who's been paramount in getting that job done. Someone from the hospitality side. We get 25 million visitors a year, and to be totally honest and humble about it, Zouk plays a very small part. But I got some colleagues that look after a hell of a lot of guests every year here. And then a very close friend of mine from London who used to have his own showbiz column, and arguably the biggest one in the country for half a decade. Used to rub shoulders, interview, even counsel a lot of big names. So we're going to have a lot of educational but also fun material coming from my side. Who have you got coming up?
I'm looking at some different people in Las Vegas in the hospitality side. Again, entertainment obviously seems to be a hot button right now. I think a lot of people are wanting to know what people in the entertainment industry are doing and what they've done kind of during their that kind of quarantine period. So looking at some entertainers to maybe get on here as well. I'm hoping I can grab a pretty big, well-known guest to bring on. I think it'd be fun for everyone.
You'll be putting me to shame. I'll have to try and dig deep. You, like in casino format, you keep raising the stakes, so I'm gonna have to dig deep into my phone book and see what I can pull out.
Well, I mean, I gotta be honest. I'm almost running out of DJs in Las Vegas. So if there's any DJs out there that want to be part of the curation, reach out to me, because we've had some amazing artists from globally that have reached out and done it. But if there's anyone else out there that wants to show off their talent, love to get you on there as well.
All right, well, Ron, I always love this part of the week. Always love chatting to you and catching up with you. Can't wait for the next one, and many more stories to come.
Sounds great, brother. Stay safe. I'll talk to you next week.
Take care.